All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. So excited for my guest today as we're going to be diving into a very important topic, one that I know a lot of people have questions about. They're seeking additional information. And William, before we dive in, I just want to thank you so much for being on Aspire to Lead.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yes, I know you're supporting schools all over in regards to AI. And so I would love to hear about your journey in education, but then also how you're supporting schools.
Absolutely. So about 2 years ago now, November 30th of 2022, of course, this big thing called ChatGPT came out. And at that time, I was actually a computer science student at North Dakota State University. So I was never an education major. All my internship work was actually done for a service co-op where I service schools with cybersecurity. So that's how I first got hands-on with schools and technology, really just got to learn how technology worked in schools. And when ChatGPT came out as a computer science student, of course, I thought it was probably the coolest thing of all time. And I really took to it and really realized how it was going to completely change the nature of work itself, but education most importantly. And I really saw how fast maybe students took to it and how outdated the education system was and really wasn't preparing students for a world where tools like ChatGPT do exist. And I've always been more entrepreneurial driven, and I saw it as a very good opportunity to help schools learn how to use AI and make sure that preparing students for a world where these tools do exist. It actually started with me just doing a reach out to area superintendents around Fargo, North Dakota is where I went to school at North Dakota State University. And I just said, hey, let me come give a 1-hour presentation to your staff about AI. I'm a computer science major at North Dakota State University. I actually ended up giving 30 of those presentations in 3 short months. It was pretty crazy. But then from there, schools came back and said, can you actually come teach our teachers how to use this as a tool? So I started a company called Gruvy Education. And now Gruvy Education delivers AI training to well over 100 different school districts all across the nation. So that training is for teachers, but I also train a lot of different school leaders specific, especially at the bigger schools in the metro areas. We'll just come in and we'll just train their leadership staff. And then additionally, literally this afternoon, I do webinar series for the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals and the Elementary School Principal Association in Minnesota. Done a lot of work with the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders, and then just Principals Association kind of scattered throughout the nation as well.
That's awesome. Well, I grew up in Minnesota, so I have a special place in my heart for that state. So
That's awesome. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, love it. So I've had a couple guests on, and we've just kind of touched on AI. We haven't gone into a deep dive. So I'm super excited about having you as a specialist, someone who's supporting schools. So I want to know, like, when you're talking with these school districts or individual campuses, what are you doing to help them adopt AI at the school level?
Yes, that is the first thing that has to be addressed is really that mindset shift of fearing AI, pushing it away, but also just feeling as though that if you're not a techie person, you shouldn't be using AI. That is nowhere near the truth. Every single person can use AI. I always like to say, if you can search on Google, you can use ChatGPT. Trust me. So you do not have to be techie, but really it's just pointing out, hey, here are all the negatives of AI. Here are all the positives of AI. Here's the statistics of student use. Here's how fast AI is getting better. This is not going away. This is only the start. So let's capitalize on the positives while we're mitigating the risks. And I just say, hey, through the training, that's exactly what we're going to do. And that's what we focus on. Mitigate the risk, capitalize on those positives.
Yeah, I think we should touch on the fear piece because I think everything I've seen on social media, some of the conversations I've had with schools and with educators, I think that's the biggest thing of just an unknown, right? Like, one, how are our students using it? How often are they using it? Detection. I think there's a lot of fear around
Mhm.
cheating, about, are they actually mastering the content, or is, a robot obviously doing the work for them? But then also on the flip side, like, how is it going to better themselves as an educator, as a teacher? And unfortunately, the thing I've seen the most is that teachers use it more for email than anything else in regards to their profession and their job. But as far as the fear, like, what are you doing to kind of limit that and trying to help people be at ease with this brand new piece of technology?
Yeah, that really comes in with the mitigating the risk portion of it. And when it comes to mitigating the risks, we really focus on how can we give assignments or curriculum to students in a way that doesn't almost, we talk about terminating the arms race that happens between education and anti-cheating technology, and instead make it more impossible to cheat by the way we're giving out assignments, by the way we are delivering the curriculum. Because through that, students will learn how to use technology in a productive way, and it's developing human skills, things computers cannot do for students. And we do this by talking about how when we have things like local environment-based questions, those are great ways to get students, push students further than what AI can offer, or project-based learning. And actually, in the training that we deliver, that is the first thing we do when we get hands-on with AI tools, is we teach them how to use AI while creating AI-resistant curriculum. So we teach them how to use AI, but the first thing we're doing is creating AI-resistant questions, creating in-class activities, creating more local environment-based questions, projects. So that's really how we're teaching them how to use AI. So they're like, oh, we just have to kind of change the way we're giving things out. And we talk about how AI, there's this massive opportunity where we can use it to bring education up to the 21st century, all while saving teachers time and improving the instructional experience for students.
All right, so I want to hear about that because obviously you've got boots on the ground. You're in classrooms, you're working with teachers and administrators all the time. I'm curious to see like what are some things that you're like, oh goodness, don't do that again, or maybe they're using it in the wrong way, or maybe some perceptions need to be changed. But I'm curious about your insights as you're working with teachers all over this country. What are some things that you're wanting to change in regards to practices?
Yeah, for sure. It's the biggest thing. I never want to show up to a school, teach them how to use AI, and then everybody just start over relying on AI. Their communications start coming off inauthentic. That is the last thing that I would ever want to happen. Before we're getting hands-on with tools, I say, when we're talking about students over relying on AI, I say, hey, every single person in this room can over rely on AI as well. Here's how we don't do that. And we talk about how really anything we're getting from ChatGPT, that is, if we're saying we're doing something like creating a lesson plan or even drafting an email, that is just a template. And then we're going in and editing it and making it our own. It's a lot easier to go in and have a huge starting point of a lesson plan and then spend that half hour of going in and making it exactly what you want and putting your expertise on it and putting your spark on it, than just using this thing from ChatGPT, blindly using it from ChatGPT is what I call it. We never want to blindly use AI outputs. It's a massive starting point.
All right, so I'm just assuming that there's a lot of folks that have used AI that are listening, and there's probably another section that they know it exists, but they really haven't really put their fingers on it very often, or maybe not at all. So for those folks that maybe have very little experience, what would be some first steps? Because I know you do a ton of training and you're working with folks, but like, what are some easy things they can do to get comfortable with this new technology?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is, every time anybody wants to learn something new, it really feels like you're diving into this world of unknowns and you just don't want to do it. We hear the word AI, we're like, that's for the techie people. I'm sure it helps them out. Not me though, not my thing. I think the biggest thing is once you get hands-on and you just try it out, it's just going to open up your mind and you're going to realize how easy it is to use. And there's two main mistakes people make. The first mistake is stopping at one prompt. Lots of people will log on to ChatGPT, try something out, and they don't like it. And then they'll just slide ChatGPT away and say, hey, I told you this thing is not for me. When in reality, the prompt was probably not very good. And then additionally, a lot of the power comes in the follow-up prompts. When you ask ChatGPT for something and you don't like it, if you just follow it up with exactly what you don't like about it, it's just going to give you an instantly revised version right on the spot. And you can do that over and over again as many times as you please. So that is the biggest mistake people make, is stopping at one prompt. I like to think of it as this super excited like assistant or intern that's just like, we ask it to do something, they show you their work and they're like, what can I do better? What can I do better? And you can say, hey, you could do this better. And they run away and come back to you, they show you it, but you can do that as many times as you want without feeling bad. So that's the plus of it. And then the second huge mistake people make when using ChatGPT is talking to it like a search engine. It's not designed to recognize. I mean, it's still going to give you an output. It's just not going to give you a good output. You're not supposed to use the keyword search. It's designed to understand conversational language.
William, I want to go to your first mistake because I think this is important for those who maybe have very little experience with AI, is that you can actually train it to do what you want over multiple prompts. And I would love for you to just kind of in layman's terms, help them understand what that looks like. And then maybe just like an educational example as to how they can get AI to work to their needs for a teacher, for an administrator. Feel free to go where you want with that example.
Yeah. As far as when it comes to follow-up prompts, we give a super vague prompt, if I were to say, create me a lesson plan for 9th grade biology class focusing on the human circulatory system, I'm going to get something back, but there's a lot to the human circulatory system. I'm going to need to be much more direct. So I could have been much more direct in my initial prompt, or I could follow it up and say, hey, make it about this specific thing. And it's just going to give me an instantly revised lesson plan about that specific thing in the human circulatory system. Or a plus, take a state standard, say, hey, make the lesson plan align to this specific state standard. Copy and paste that state standard in, and you're going to get the lesson plan that covers that specific state standard. So when you aren't very specific in that initial prompt, you're going to get a vague response. So we follow it up. Same thing goes with tone of the writing. When you hop on a ChatGPT, you're going to realize that it's super wordy. It likes a lot of descriptors. The sentences are super long. And sometimes we don't need that long of an answer. We just want something quick. We want simple sentences. So either including in your initial prompt, hey, make this extremely simple. I always say use simple wording and be straightforward are the two that I use the most, but those are also things you can follow up with. So it's just really being super specific. I thought of this yesterday as I was doing a webinar, but it's like my mom asking me a question. She'll call me and she'll be like, how was your day? Super, super vague question. I'll say, fine. But if she were to ask, hey, did you go to any schools today? Like, did you deliver any trainings today? I'd probably go much more in depth. So again, be specific with prompting, follow it up with specific things, and those follow-up prompts are going to treat you well.
I feel like you were a part of my conversations with my mom too. Like I always got that every single day when I got in the car from school. All right, so let's talk about students specifically, because I know you talked about ChatGPT. Did I say that right?
Yeah, ChatGPT, yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But the AI now, I mean, I swear every company has their own version of AI. So for teachers, that's probably a good starting point for our folks that are maybe a little more advanced in their experience with AI. Is there, like, when you're doing your trainings, are there specific applications that you recommend for teachers to use with their students?
Yeah, it really depends if I'm doing a teacher training or a school leader training.
Sure.
For the school leader training, most of it is all done on ChatGPT.
Right.
Why? Because once you get that conversational part down where we know we can ask it for anything and ask it stuff back, then we get into the fun stuff like data analysis. How can we help it make more data-driven decisions for our school? Things like that there's a lot more advanced functionalities inside of ChatGPT. Once you master the basics, you get to dive into those. So with the school leader trainings, it's really a lot of ChatGPT working with the data analysis and some of those more advanced functionalities. And that's for school leaders. In the teacher trainings, we hop on different platforms that are out there that were made for teachers. Some of my favorites, Eduway.ai, Diffit, Magic School, of course, but there are so many different platforms out there. So many.
All right. I think that's a good starting point, at least for them to dive into specific applications to see if it'll work for their classrooms. And then I want to know, obviously, education is very, very difficult. To be a teacher, to be an administrator, to be a counselor, whatever your role is, And I know people are always looking for ways to save time within that role. So as far as the professional side within their different role, like, is there anything that you would suggest they use AI for to maybe take a couple things off their plate?
Yeah, super interesting question, because it really seems, as I talk to other people that are probably as use AI as much as I do, or I really see that everybody almost has their own little specific niched way of using AI. One of them, I know I was talking to a superintendent at one of these schools that I do training at, and she was saying how she likes to jot, like when she's walking around the school doing her rounds around the school, her biggest thing is she loves to just message people around the school with what she like, notes what she liked when she saw when she walked around the school. But her biggest thing was she just wouldn't, she'd write, like while she was walking, she would just want to write down a quick sentence, and then it would take forever, and then she'd get back to her office and have to sit down and type everything out, send it off. It was taking way too long. Now she just like will put keywords in her notes on what she saw, like super quickly, get back, turn them into kindly worded suggestions for improvement, or not suggestions for improvement, compliments, whatever it may be in that specific situation. It saves all of that time and thinking of how can I formulate this into a sentence. So things like that. For me, the number one way I use it is, I'm a computer science student, so I am not good at spelling. It is the worst thing ever. So I use it the most for adding grammar. I mean, fixing my grammar. See what I did there? I have no grammar. Fixing my grammar and adding clarity to what I'm writing.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to say is fix grammar and clarity, colon,
Mhm.
copy and paste what needs to be fixed, and boom, it's
Yep.
fixed. But everybody really has their own niche way of using it. I know a biggest way I use it is just creating like directions or standard operating procedures inside of the company. It can take me recording myself on a Zoom, doing an activity and explaining it with my voice, and it turns it into these perfect SOPs based off of the transcript. So there's just like so many different ways that, however, when you start using it, you're going to find that specific way, and you will never want to live without it.
Oh, for sure. So this is obviously a tool that's not going away. I think folks are realizing that, and as you said, it's only getting better and more enhanced for the user experience. I would love for you, though, if there's a superintendent, a leader, someone that's wanting to bring you in to assist in this as far as training their teachers, their staff, what does the Groovy Education AI training look like?
Yes. So the Gruvy Education AI training has a couple different components. It is usually a half-day workshop. It's a 3 to 4 hour in-person or virtual thing where I come in and I'm engaging with your staff for 3 to 4 hours. Usually that's done in a half day. Sometimes it's split up into 1 hour blocks, leveraging early outs, things like that. But really did not want it to be a one and done thing. So it's that initial training, but then you're also getting access to the Gruvy Education online training portal. You get a year's access to that, where the full training is really set up as a full asynchronous course. There's over 60 different activities and video tutorials that just walk teachers through how to use AI as a tool in so many different ways. And they can go through that, get 10 hours continuing education, earn badges from North Dakota State University, take it for credit through North Dakota State University. So there's just a lot of continuing education aspects into that. And then additionally, all their teachers get to come to our Gruvy Education specific webinars that are monthly. So they get that initial training, way more continuing education in the training portal for a year, along with deep dives into specific topics once a month, expanding their knowledge.
That's awesome. All right. So for those who are watching on YouTube, first off, thank you. And second of all, I've been throwing up your website as our conversation has been going at groovyeducation.com. So if you're looking for more information, obviously there's going to be a ton on this training. But I wanted quickly, William, just to ask you about a in-person event coming up. It's crazy that 2024 is almost done, but 2025 is around the corner, January 30th and 31st in Tampa, Florida. I know you've got a summit coming up. So will you just share about that?
Absolutely, yes. The School Superintendents Association is putting on an AI Super Summit in Tampa, Florida. I'm super excited because I'm up in Fargo, and January it's going to be wonderful being in Tampa. So I'm looking forward to it. But there's a bunch of different tracks: human capital, business services. One of them's teaching and learning, and I'm part of that teaching and learning track. So superintendents, school leaders can go into different tracks. I'm part of the teaching and learning track. If you want to learn, I'm putting on like modifying lesson plans, differentiation, a big differentiation session, and then also we talked about terminating that arms race between education and anti-cheating technology, also putting on a whole session about that. So there's a bunch of different tracks. I highly recommend checking it out. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So if you're interested, make sure you're checking that out. We'll make sure that there's a link in the show notes for folks that want to go. And yeah, if you're definitely in a cold state, as I'm bundled up looking at snow falling right now, Tampa sounds amazing, especially in January. So definitely check that out. All right. I need to ask you, William, a question that I ask all of my guests, which is really focused on aspiring and current leaders. So if there's anything they could do tomorrow, next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things that you can do with ChatGPT as a school leader is start using it to make more data-driven decisions. School leaders have this massive amount of data that's just all stuck in spreadsheets, and turning it into actionable plans has never been possible before. And especially has never been possible in like 5-10 minutes. So the biggest thing is learning how to use ChatGPT so you can leverage that. And if you do want just a list of different ways that you can leverage ChatGPT to do data analysis and additionally turn that data analysis into actionable plans, you can go to my Instagram, Gruvy Education, Gruvy Education. Just send me a message that says leader, and I will send you a full document with a bunch of different ways to use it for data analysis, and then a bunch of different prompts for turning that data analysis into actionable plans.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, you've touched on Instagram. I have been throwing up your website as we've had our conversation, but what are some other ways that folks can connect with you, William?
Yes, Instagram, I'm really going to be pushing that hard soon. I just started posting regularly, but it's really taking recordings from the trainings that I do, getting it into shorts and getting it out to everybody. So super
Awesome.
valuable stuff on there. All of my handles are Gruvy Education, Gruvy Education. My main platforms are Instagram, X, and LinkedIn is just William Grube. So just my LinkedIn profile, but Instagram is the big one. So see you there.
Yeah, very cool. So as always, I'll have a whole host of links in the show notes, both on joshshaver.com, on your podcast platforms, and of course on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, love for you to hit that subscribe button and like. If you have any comments too, make sure that you're throwing those in, because love getting back to those questions. And sometimes I actually use those questions for future episodes. So please make sure that you're interacting in that way. Of course, I would love for you to connect with William. He's wonderful, has a ton of knowledge on this topic specifically, and make sure that you're heading over to his website, gruvyeducation.com. With that, William, it was so great to meet you, especially a fellow Minnesotan, and love getting to understand your journey and then learn about this important topic.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.